Thanks for the reminder. First we'll start looking at the federal funding, and then we'll look at concept development. And let me give you the link in the chat for the overview finding funding. And so while we're going into lots of detail funding, so hopefully that'll give you some help with actually doing it, and that's something that's completely foreign when you start. This document overviews the last couple sessions as far as finding funding. And one of my favorite places to go, as I stated the first time, is ORS. They have a lot of information. So let me share my screen. I have to share screen, yeah. So this is the ORS homepage. For those of you that were not here the last week, when we talked about ORS page, it has lots of resources on it. So one of the things it has is the search. So if we go to the search page, there are links to federal, state, and county and private grants and foundations. So this candid.org is for foundations. So those are just really nice, easy starting places for you to search for grants. Also, the worksheet that I gave you, there's a few other links that aren't there on these resources, as well as this directs you to the ORS page. So ORS is the Office of Research Services. For those who weren't here last week, and they submit grants on our behalf. We don't have authority to submit grants on our own. Every institution has what they call the Sponsored Research Office that reviews the grants, deals with the contracting, and submits them on behalf. So that's what ORS has, but they have a lot of resources on the website, such as these search engines, as well as they have a grant writing handbook. Here it is under Apply, Proposal Development, and Grant Seekers Handbook, which is really nice too. And that's again on the bottom of the worksheet that I provided for you. So, but today we're going to talk about finding federal funding. So let's go into this link that says federal. So federal funding comes through different departments. So it's good to kind of think about which federal departments align with your project idea and subscribe and watch those departments, so that you're not going all over the place trying to look for different grants and funding, because it's a lot of information. So as you see here, on the ORS page, they nicely list all the different departments. So this U.S. Department of Agriculture, Department of Defense, and there's smaller departments within them. The Department of Commerce, which also houses NOAA, which is one of the grants that we look at, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, has lots of different smaller branches. Most of the other federal agencies. So in here are things like the National Endowment for the Arts. So I think, Brooke, you were interested in some things that are a little bit more humanities focused. So the National Endowment for the Humanities might be a good option for different types of grants. We have Institute of Museum and Library Services for those that are in the libraries, and also the National Science Foundation. So the nice thing about this is that when you click on the links, they take you to the various funding pages. So this is like the National Science Foundation, where you can search for grant funding and browse the different grants. Like the Department of Education. So the links that ORS provides go more or less to the grant writing page. So if we go like the Department of Education, we go to that agency's funding page. So because we're in higher education, we like education grants. It's a really popular one for us, as well as the National Science Foundation, USDA. So they have a page where they talk about all the funding opportunities. But if you go just to their grants program, the grant page, the grants and programs page, and this you have to do some digging around for the different agencies. Different agencies are all different. It tells you it has links. So we're looking at discretionary grants, not Pell grants, anything like that. Ordinary grants are basically fundings allotted to them in different portions of the year, and it's renewed when the federal government passes their budget, which is most of the grants that we apply for. So this has nice things. It has like a grant forecast, so you can look at what grants are opening soon. And they organize it by sub-departments. So like Office of Post-Secondary Education would be one that we look at, but they have Educational Sciences, which has more of a research arm, Special Education, CTE, which is we're also interested in. But if we click on the Office of Post-Secondary Education, they list all the grants that are forecasted to come out soon. So that's really helpful information because a lot of these federal grants come with a few week turnaround, and it's really hard, like 4 to 6 weeks. National Science Foundation is nice because it gives like their deadlines a few years in advance, maybe October, the next 2 or 3 years. But some of these grants happen pretty quickly, so it's good if you're looking at some kind of forecaster and looking at the right branch and watching for them. Another thing that you can do, like most of them have funding programs. So the National Science Foundation had lined up the different programs. I've actually read through some of these sometimes here and there, like looking at all the programs and searching them to see what they have. So this is like the A to Z list of programs. National Science Foundation, on the page, they had that as well. But there are also the Federal Register notices. So this is where the grant competitions are first published. So if you click on, and you just would search for National Register for each department, you can see like what's been posted, but even more important is you can subscribe. So if I have actually gone to like the US Department of Education, the USDA, various branches within USDA, and I've subscribed to their Federal Register. So then you get emails every day, and it looks something like, you see a different page, right? Because I shared the screen. Okay. They look something like this. So if you want to subscribe to them, I think it's really a good thing because what happens is a lot of times they're posted for a 90-day review. So you know then that the grant's coming through in 90 days and it's going to be published. So here's somewhat what they look like. That's so you get this email just about every day about what's posted for the day. And the notices, usually there's some kind of distinction, like this one says application for new awards. So then we know this grant just was posted. And then it gives you the Federal Register document. So this is basically everything you need to know, most everything you need to know to apply for the grant. And then they also give the instructions. So it's a good thing that you could just watch for it where you don't have to go to the website every day to look for them, that you can get these notices sent to you. Like USDA, I signed up for the same like notifications to the USDA page. This one is via Twitter. So then they'll say like funding opportunity. And they give these to my emails, and then I can click on the link and I can see what the funding opportunity is. And then they have links to, like, for example, the solicitation and more information. So I know it might seem complicated. So the thing to focus on is just sign up for one department. Look at one area that's of interest to you and sign up for it. And then you can watch for that every day. Let's see where I'm going here. So like sometimes there's announcements, like this is an announcement that there's a new grant open, and then you have to go find that notification. So let's go into USDA. It takes a little bit of looking, but if you just think about, like, I'm just gonna look at one Department of Education program. I'm gonna look at one, I'm just gonna look at USDA. Then you can narrow it down and just get familiar with one federal funding source that you follow. Maybe it's the National Science Foundation, maybe it's the Department of Education, and then you can just get comfortable with it. So for example, here's the USDA page, and it tells us about the different grants that are going to be available soon. And all of these are actually grants that some of us might be interested in applying for. So let's take the first one, Socially Disadvantaged Groups Grant Program, so then I can learn more. And it gives me information about how to apply for the grant. And we're not going to delve into reading the solicitation and understanding what's all needed at this moment. And this is just some thoughts on how to look at grants, how to get links to apply and find them. So this gives some information. So the rural development is an area of USDA, like a smaller branch within the USDA. And we're going to look for this grant on grants.gov. So grants.gov, and this is on my page as well, the grants.gov. Grants.gov is a, generally for most federal grants, you apply through grants.gov. Some programs have different systems they apply through. The National Science Foundation has their own system. The Department of Energy has their own system, but majority of grants are through grants.gov. And you can search grants.gov as well. So for example, right now we're looking at the socially disadvantaged groups, right? So I put that in, and about 800 grants show up. That's a lot to go through, right? And I don't see it here. So what happened? To narrow it down, I know that we're looking, because we looked at the USDA page and we want to find it. So I know that we're looking for the USDA grant. And they have ways that you can limit it on the left-hand side. But I think one of the easiest ways to limit it is by the agency, if you know what agency you're looking for. So I'm looking for the Department of Agriculture grant. And it still doesn't show up. So what's happening? How can I find this grant? That just means it's not open right now. So what shows up on grants.gov is what is open. So that's why while you can search and look for grants in grants.gov, it only shows you what's open. And what's open generally has a short turnaround. So you're going to have to figure out what's open, apply for the grant, and have it ready in a month or two or less. And so that's not a good way to go about it. It's better to be looking ahead at the different departments, kind of targeting what grant you might want to look for. But it's probably closed or archived. So I have to say that different agencies aren't very good. Like the forecasted isn't very reliable, and the archived and closed, like some agencies archive theirs right away and some don't, and some are just different years. So if you're looking for something that's already been offered, you basically need to check both closed and archived here on the left-hand side. So here they are, they showed up. I have socially disadvantaged groups grants. And so why is this important? Why might you want to see the history of when these are offered?
So when you can predict when it's going to come around again.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I'm going to look at the closed and archived grants. So the socially disadvantaged groups grants, I can tell, like this came out in fall 2020. It came out in summer 2019. Came out in summer 2018, summer 2017, fall 2016, and summer 2015. So I know that this looks like it's very consistent. Every year it comes out summer or fall, and it comes out every year. Sometimes people have their eyes on a grant that doesn't come out every year, and they don't know that. So that's why it's a good thing to look at. Like the this would be a good one to look at. So this is posted right now, but if I wanted to look at another way you can search, if you know the CFDA number, which is the catalog for federal programs. They all have their unique number. I know if I put in the letters, they don't come up, but if I put in the CFDA number, it'll come up and then it'll just show me those grants specifically. You see, every grant has this number here. But so for example, this one, it's out right now, and you see it's a fairly short turnaround to apply to it. But then the last time it came out was 3 years ago. And then before that, it was 5 years ago. And before that, it was 5 years ago. So that was not consistent, but we know it comes out every 3 to 5 years. So if you're looking and thinking, oh, grant that matches exactly what I want to do, then you see like it doesn't come out every year. So some come out every year, some come out every 3 years, some come out every 5 years. But if you know that pattern, another way to find that out is talk to the program officer, would be another possibility. But let's go back to the socially, well, actually, you could look at this one. So once you're here and you found the grant you want to apply to, even if it's closed, you can find the same information. So you can find out the basic information by looking on the cover page. So I can see who's eligible. This is nonprofits. I can see different information about the grant, who to contact for questions. I think they have, oh yeah, they have just some basic information. But if you go to related documents, they have the notice. Everybody says NIA. So if you hear an NIA is notice inviting applications for new awards. So this is what's actually published in the Federal Register. So we can look at that, and then pretty small font and several columns, but this is published in the Federal Register about the application. So you need to read through this and know this. But also, if you look at package, so most grants come with what are instructions that are even more thorough, and you need to find that. And so like here, if I go to preview and download my instructions, and tell me everything I need to know to apply for the grant. It's something that's a little more understandable than the notice inviting applications for awards, right? The NIA. Usually the NIA stuff is in here, but you just have to look back and forth to see if there's additional information in one or the other. But I can pull this up for awards that are closed. So then if I know, why don't someone throw something out? What's an area that you're interested in finding a grant for? Any grant ideas? Just anything random.
Invasive species.
Okay. Invasive species. So this can give us some idea. I'm going to put closed. It's an awful lot to go through, right? But I can get some ideas of different grants that are out there that happen. To look through. And it might take a while to find things that look possible, but once you find them, let's look at this Cooperative Endangered Species Conservative Grant Fund. So there's different regions. I don't know what region we're in, but then you can start looking for different grants and try to find out like what is you what you're interested in, so that I can preview it. I can look at the instructions. And I can start learning about those different programs and following them. So grants.gov is one way you can find different information about grants. The other way would be looking through the actual different departments of the federal government. But then you start getting an idea, okay, what agencies are good ones for me to look at. So then you can start just getting a feel for what agencies are offering these types of grants. So I do actually prefer going through the different agencies and searching. But you can do both. So a little bit of both. You need both to figure out the different grants and see the pattern that is being offered and get familiar with the federal grants. So after following the federal grants and having like signing up for the registrar and the emails, like I mentioned, you start getting a feel of the grants that are offered every year, and you see the grants that might fit for you. So, for example, if you signed up for NOAA, you start seeing that, okay, there's like this watershed grant that comes up every year or every spring or every 2 years. Or there's Department of Agriculture grants that occur every year that I might be interested in. So that's kind of like the idea of the searching for federal funding is signing up for these register notices is a good step. Looking at the different departments, finding a department that matches. So I'd say first step is just finding a department that matches and signing up for the federal registrar like we had looked at. You have to do some looking around to see how you sign up for it. There we go, subscribe. So this one wasn't so bad. Usually in the bottom somewhere it tells you how to subscribe for their grants. So you can subscribe for updates for grants. You can go forward and give them your email. So that's a nice way. So if you know you want to follow the Department of Education, or if you want to follow USDA, then you can sign up for them and then you can get the notifications every day. And just start skimming through them. And then you just pay attention to the ones that say like funding opportunities, because there's a lot of other information there that sounds confusing, but when you start seeing these things that say like, usually like request for applications, so usually they identify when there's a grant. So you'll see a lot of information here about rules, proposed rules, notices. Those aren't grants. So really you just pay attention for the request for applications, the funding opportunities, and then you start to get a feel for them. You can also go to departments like we looked at the USDA, Department of Education, National Science Foundation, whatever you're interested in, you can search for awards. Is there any questions about that? I know it's probably a lot of information. And part of it is just getting started in it. And there's no exact science for it, it's just kind of feeling around. You can also look at funded projects. So all of them generally have projects that have been funded. Like NSF is a good one for that. Oops, that's not it. So like, for example, you always have to just do some digging around to find it, but you can find out what's been funded. I can't find it that easily. But. I should look this part up before I went, but is anybody familiar with NSF to help me find this? I know you can search somewhere for funded projects. There we go. Recently announced opportunities. There we go. About funding, search previous awards. So most places, most awards have something that you can find previous awards. So you might want to put ITAS maybe. So then I can see a little bit of different ones. And sometimes it doesn't go by what the program is. So you have to search for like your area of interest, like physics. Let's see, would be example. So then you can look on different grants that have been funded and then see what they're like and see what program they were funded in. Probably has some glaze over looks about this, but it's just good to start. So I would just encourage you to choose one department and follow. So just some thoughts. What department might you have interested in following? I give the link to ORAS. You can look for some federal ones. And you can type it in chat too. For those of you that are able to look. Health and Human Services, Education, Humanities. So just pick one. You can follow, you can get notifications, start getting familiar with what those notifications look. Yeah, the Native Hawaiian is a department, but you can search. Actually, on my funding, it's a little outdated, but there was a list of federal grants for the Native Hawaiian community. So it's a good starting place to look, or you could search in Grantsgov Native Hawaiian, or because they span different funding opportunities like USDA, Department of Education. So what do you guys think? I think I lost everybody on this one. U.S. Department of Ag, Co-op Research and Extension. Good job. Thank you. I want to challenge you. Pick one. Look through the list. Pick one. I want to hear from most people real quick. Just pick one and say, I'm going to look at this department and I'm going to find how to sign up for the notifications. Department of Ag or USDA, yes. The Rural Business Development, or Rural Development Agency is a good one for, I think, some of the stuff we want to do to help individuals as far as the entrepreneurial for the Maui Food Innovation Center. But Gary knows that probably. Department of Health and Human Services, grants for opportunities in Native Hawaiian language preservation. Yes, the Administration for Native Americans has the, that's probably Velma's at maybe the department. They have the language preservation grants, and maybe you're looking at something different, but they have language preservation grants, and they also have social and economic development grants, but they're for nonprofit agencies. But we can partner with people. We have lots of friends in the community in higher education. Some people are here, have joined from different agencies. We can partner, and then we could work together to help co-write it. And if we're not eligible for different grants.
Melissa, can you show us again how to just subscribe to it? Like I picked the Ag Department of Ag, and then I went and I followed the links, but now I got lost.
Yeah, they all are different. Let me look at USDA. Let's see, they're all different in how you sign up for, but usually
Oh, okay.
go to the bottom. Yeah, let me share this. So in USDA and the NIFA department, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And if I go generally on the bottom, I can subscribe. And for the bigger departments, it'll give me different, sometimes it'll give me different options.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, but then you might enter your email. So their subscriptions, as I was showing with the emails, it's not just grant opportunities, but then you get grant opportunities in there, because sometimes they'll tell you awards for a program. You're like, oh, look at that. I didn't know that program existed. Let me see how often is it offered yearly? Is it offered every 3 years? Is it offered every 5 years? What kind of grants are under that program? Because it's kind of related to what I want to do. So that's the other thing that's a benefit of subscribing, because a lot of times they'll give you some of these, like USDA is really good about giving you notifications of funded programs too. So it's just a reminder to look. Like, you could just choose a day a week to skim through some of those emails and see. But I think it's the easiest way to start getting used to the different federal grants in your area. So you can also look at own small business grants, blind minority or disadvantaged groups, or socially disadvantaged. So like USDA has like socially disadvantaged groups, and they have socially disadvantaged farmers type grants, and yeah, so there's a lot. And I think if we can, for a lot of them, if we look at some of the Native Hawaiian serving grants, like through the Department of Education, there's a few of them. There's the Native Hawaiian Education Program, and the Title III. Usually our institutions have ideas of what they want to do with the Title III grants. But the Native Hawaiian Education Program, we can submit as many as we want to, and I think that's something everybody should watch for. So to sign up for the Department of Education and watch for the Native Hawaiian Education Program grants. They usually come out, I think, in the summer, but not necessarily every year, because we can submit unlimited. So those are the good ones. And we have, what did you say? Even the USDA, they have Native Hawaiian, Alaska Native and Native Hawaiian Serving Institution grants. If those types of grants we can more easily get, they're not quite as competitive sometimes. So they're good ones for us. But I think I'd like to position more people to write the Native Hawaiian Education Program grant. I know Julie was on here before. She has submitted them. But I think if we're in a good position to submit them, that's something that we can get, and they're fairly generous grants. We all just have to watch them. I think the last couple of competitions, I was so busy writing other grants that I stopped watching. So that's one of my other hopes by getting more people thinking about these things, is more people watching for them, because when I'm really busy, I miss them when I'm swamped with other things. So, and that might be a good one to look at through Grants.gov and get the package information, and I can even send it out to the grant writing group. But I think that's something as institutions we miss out on. So, so I'll get that information when that was coming next. And people can be thinking about the project and look at the old solicitation to know what's involved and start thinking about projects for that, because it could fit so many different projects for us. So kind of with that, thinking about projects, I created this grant writing resource folder. And everything is there. Oops. Okay, so this is there's different folders. I think I put it on share. If you have a link, you can open them. But we've been talking about finding funding, and that's there. And we've been talking about concept development, and that's there. So that's a resource for you. And now we're going to talk about our concept and brainstorming our concept. So if you look at the second link that I gave, you should get to our concept brainstorm sheet. And let me share my screen. So this is what we're going to look at next. I haven't done this with the setting. Like normally, if we were in a room together, I would have you sit and fill this out for a couple minutes. Do we have any people who do trainings or teaching? How do you do that when you have someone brainstorm in a Zoom session?
You just do it the same way. Either you use yellow stickies or some other form. Just have them brainstorm and then work out, communicate somehow. There's a whiteboard capability here in Zoom you could use.
For each individual person can do it?
Yeah.
We could make a copy of the document.
Yeah, I was hoping that everybody can like have a copy of it and download it.
Oh, then we could put it in a Google Docs.
That's what I did.
Okay, then everybody has their own copy if they save it first.
Right. So there's a whiteboard option where everybody can write on their own document.
From what I know, I've used before is, you know, at the top when it says we're viewing your screen and it says view options and got the arrow. You can click on that arrow and down below it says annotate. And if you click on annotate, it brings up a bar, a toolbar that has, you know, mouse text. And so you can insert text here. And that's what you can do. So if people are giving you verbal answers, you can type it in here. You see how the text popped up? So you would say, hi, Melissa. See, and that's me typing. Yeah, but you can do that also. So I know that's how it works on a Mac. I don't know about a PC, if that's the same. And then
It's the same.
it is, see, and then I've left it and it has my note there.
Yeah, Zoom doesn't care what you type on.
Okay, well, I think, so my thought is to break us into rooms and then go over this worksheet. So just to get a concept idea, and maybe you can talk it through. Hopefully everybody can have a link now that we share the link and have access to that. To brainstorm, what's your project idea? Lassie's gonna laugh at me. I can only think of one example. So what's your project idea? Just a few bullet points. Who's your target for the project? So my example is, well, actually, let me share this again.
Melissa, you want us each individually to make our own concept paper for the idea we have.
Right.
Yeah, I think if you make the document view only and everybody can just file and make a copy and retitle it to their concept paper, then everybody can have their own document of their own idea. and then
Yeah.
we can edit and share.
Okay. I made it view only. And I think, I mean, it'd be nice if you could write it so that that makes it more concrete, but you can talk about it in your group. So basically, you know, a clear concept helps you be able to talk about your idea with potential funders. It helps when you're searching for funding to narrow down where you're searching. And eventually, this would be developed into a one-page statement, so you can share with program officers and other people to strengthen your project ideas. But I think right now, my thought is just a sentence. And I think if you write it down, it gets stronger, that you can state your idea more clearly. So the first part is, what is your project idea? So write out a few thoughts or bullet points on it. So my example is Project Stimulate, which incorporates a culturally relevant education model, respectful of local culture. It's grounded in problem-based learning, uses STEM partners to provide real-world problems and mentoring, and ends the professional symposium. So that would be my idea. And then who is your target project? Students, data point, adults, businesses, be specific. So for this project, my target is low income, first generation to college and or Native Hawaiian high school students. So you want to think about who's your target group the project will serve. The next question gets you thinking about what's the end result of your project. So what is your goal and what is the outcome? So an example would be, the outcome would be targeting students to be confident in STEM, gain STEM skills and knowledge, and be interested in pursuing STEM careers. So as a result of my project, this is what I hope will happen. Why is this important? Why is there a need for this project? So in my example, Native Hawaiian and low-income students are underrepresented in STEM careers. And now I put this all together in one sentence. So an example is, Project Stimulate is a culturally relevant, problem-based learning model aligned to STEM industry to engage low-income first-generation Native Hawaiian high school students in STEM to address the underrepresentation of this target group in STEM careers. So you might not get there right now today in this little bit of time, but what I want you to do is brainstorm all above, and then you can work on that sentence. So what I will do is put everybody in groups for about 10 to 15 minutes to talk through it. And then we're going to come together and share our statement as best we can in a phrase. Okay, so. I'm going to make the breakout rooms. So I encourage you to download or save your copy in your own Google Drive so you can work on it and you can write it out. And we'll come back at about 10:20. I'm muted. I randomly assigned the rooms. That's just interesting. I can see the connections of the rooms that I assigned. As I told Moani, there's always connections for all the projects. And welcome back. Now, as if the time everybody dreads, sometimes, I want everybody just to try to state their project, and it's okay. And if you really don't want to, you can pass on it. But I want you to state your project ideas as best you can at the moment, just to work on this refining process. Should I pick someone to start? Does someone want to volunteer? Lassie, I'm going to make you go first.
Sure. So Melissa shared, like in her example of a concept brainstorm is the current Stimulate project that I work on. I coordinate, and we've had some like really good things come out of it, and so I'm looking for ways that we can expand the current Stimulate project. And one of the things that we really worked hard on and that we fine-tuned and we have like a good solid foundation on is the teacher training. And so I've been looking at a NSF grant called DRK12, which is due in October. So I'm hoping like if I do a little bit at a time, like hopefully I'll make the date to submit, because it takes so much to do it. But anyways, okay, so I'm looking to do teacher training in problem-based learning, introducing teaching and learning strategies and processes to support underrepresented youth populations in their trajectory for STEM study, by by helping the teachers gain the skill sets and the capacities to do so. And so it would be teaching the teacher strategies and providing the mindset to help them to create this learning environment that facilitates the tenets of problem-based learning, culturally grounded, and grounded in culturally relevant and place-based learning. And then we also wanted to incorporate this idea of humanity, so that there's this the idea of listening with empathy and growth mindset along with STEM. And then the target would be high school teachers, and looking at this multidisciplinary pool of high school teachers. So not just necessarily your traditional STEM teachers, but maybe also incorporating other high school teachers in other areas, so that we're really like engaging teachers in this idea of collaborative teaching. And that's as far as I got, was those 2 questions.
Okay, I'm just going to go in the order of my screen. Wani, you're next.
What? Okay.
Your thoughts as far as
Okay, I'll do my thoughts. So my project idea is to propagate Maile on Maui, so that we don't have to import or bring in from neighbor islands for cultural practices. And so who's my target for this project? Of course, Kumuhula cultural practitioners, lay makers, lay sellers, tropical agriculture, and I'm open to more. What will be different as a result of your project? Our forests and our natural habitats will be preserved, because people won't be going into these places to take from what's barely there and what remains, so that so why is this important? Again, so we don't take from the forest, so that we make it readily available or available for cultural practice uses, for sale, for to keep our things here, so we don't have to take from other islands or travel to other islands to pick and gather. So, and that's why it's important. So I'll put that all together in a good sentence. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for sharing. Brooke, if you don't mind sharing your project.
Okay. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna try. Okay, so I called it, because you had like a cool name for it. So I just put Project Mo'olelo to Comic Books. And my project idea was, I called it that, but it's like Native Hawaiian culturally based education, lack of literary resources for the Native Hawaiian community, especially in history, culture, language, lack of modern day or relevant materials for the Native Hawaiian community. And then it's all the mo'olelo are very much place-based. So that I thought that was good. My target audience would be Native Hawaiians and posts like in college, Native Hawaiians in college, in the Hawaiian Studies program at the university, maybe high school. I don't know how you kind of get that in, but maybe. I just put for number 3, Native Hawaiians will strengthen their sense of self in the world, as well as their culture and history, and see their history and culture as this like moving forward, rather than like this thing that's stuck in the past. Like you can take things from our history and culture and kind of bring it to the present without feeling like you're betraying like your history or culture. Number 4 was lack of Native Hawaiian materials. Lack of Hawaiian materials for Native Hawaiians. And then I guess my number 5 was Project Mo'olelo to Comic Book is a culturally relevant, problem-based. I got that from yours. Project aligned to the Native Hawaiian community to engage Native Hawaiian college students in education to, I guess, address the lack of Hawaiian study materials.
Great job, thank you. Your idea from the start, not really knowing till now, you're really conceptualizing it. There's a lot there that you
have. Okay.
You haven't put it into writing before, but now it's just really cool to start to hear it come together.
Thank you.
Dalma, would you mind going next?
All right. Okay. My project idea comes from maybe creating a Native Hawaiian Student Services Center, because we're noticing students who graduate from Kulakaiopuni, or those that have been immersion programs throughout their entire academic, high school or elementary and high school. So when they transition to UH campuses, where we have kind of like a Western kind of, way of teaching, sometimes the transition is a struggle, because they sometimes don't understand the structure that we're in. So I thought a student services could help, where they could be themselves and they could olelo and express themselves. And then in response, we could do the same thing too. So they understand what they would have, their obstacles. So the target for the project would be Native Hawaiian students, especially who are recent graduates of those programs, or even those that olelo in their household and, they want to, pursue a college education. So I focus on like Maui Nui residents, since, we're here on this island. And also the result of it would be, we would be aiming towards retention, right? And probably graduation rates and stuff. So those are the factors that I'm aiming towards. Also +2 with a community connectiveness. So where they could, maybe towards the end of the program, we could try to help job place them, based on their major and whatnot. So that's why I thought it was a comprehensive student services idea that I have. Why is it needed? Basically to promote Hawaiian culture-based education, and like I had said earlier, increase graduation rates for Native Hawaiian students. Because I did find a data recently that Native Hawaiian adults age 25 and older, the national trend of people 25 and older holding a BA is like 27%. Whereas when we look at the Native Hawaiians, they're down at like the 16%. So there's quite a gap there that we could try to fulfill. So my overview is a college readiness program for Maui Nui residents of Native Hawaiian ancestry, aims to promote and practice the vitality of Hawaiian language and culture and bridge students with educational and economical opportunities, which extends to community connectedness. So that's my statement.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to get that started.
I need your help though.
Oh, we'll work towards it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaliho.
Yeah, Lori?
Yeah.
You okay going?
Okay, I will fess up. I did not do my homework. It's just been a very great pleasure to learn a lot. So I've been trying to absorb. It's been a little overwhelming. I didn't realize I was treading this deep into a world that didn't know what would encompass. So, yeah.
I appreciate that you're here and coming. And as for any of you who don't have ideas and don't have time, just come. Even though we're doing this and, you know, and I'm sorry I'm putting everybody in the spotlight, but I do believe those ideas are inside of you for your passion projects. So just keep coming. And thank you for your honesty and thank you for being here. Please keep coming.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's great. And I'm sorry I'm putting everybody in the spot. So if you just don't feel comfortable, just let me know. And I'm just going quicker instead of having the pauses and just calling on everybody. But it's just good to know where everybody's at. So don't feel bad if you don't have a project. You just do like, I passed this one. It's okay. So Emily, you might want to share.
I'm like Lori. I didn't come with a project in mind because I'm instructional technology support. I just came to learn the tools, right? But I'm the kid that'll do my homework 5 minutes before class. And so you guys have all inspired me and I've come up with a project in the last 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so I would call the project probably teaching in multiple languages, which is kind of a play on the Hawaiian English thing, but it would be focused on the distance modality versus the in-person or live modality. My target population would be the instructors of the UH system schools. And then the difference of, as a result of my project would be, I would hope to better equip instructors to adapt to the changing modality landscape. So enabling them to think in a way that's like, teaching online is a different language than teaching in person, kind of a thing. Because it's a different skill set, it's a different, the tools, it's different. You just got to think of it mentally in a different way, right? So this is important to increase the outcomes by broadening the voice of each individual instructor. And I don't have a sentence ready for it, so.
That's exciting. See, there's a passion project inside of us all. So thank you, Emily, for going there. Winnie, if you have something to share.
Yes. Okay. So it's still in very infancy stage. What I have as my concept idea is introducing sustainable development in tourism and hospitality centered on local economic value, Hawaiian culture, and environmental resources. So that's pretty much my concept. And some of the bullet that I wanted to accomplish in this concept is educate and partner with tourism and hospitality professionals, incorporate support regenerative tourism by exploring training on the local culture. And what I wanted to do is use a four weeks program and with a certification program. And also wanted to make this as a requirement for any businesses that servicing 200 or more visitors. I think so as far as the target is the industry professionals and nonprofit organizations. And my partner and I earlier, we talked about how I need to have a outcome for my project. So I kind of draft out what I wanted is that at the end of my project is that the hospitality and tourism industry professional will see a 30% increase by investing in the resources, time and resources that benefit the health, welfare, and economic stability of the local communities. And I further kind of broken it out to 50% more community involvement, 70% employee retention rate increase, or 70% employee retention rate, and 50% local sentiment on the industry. Because I see it as a whole, there's a somewhat negative sentiment as far as the on the industry. So I'm hoping to this grant the concept is to educate the people in the industry, the professional who's working in the industry, how they need to promote the local economic value, promote Hawaiian culture and the environmental resources. If we invest in the community, then things will I think the community will see a more positive value in the industry. So I know it's kind of long, so but I'm still kind of just putting pieces together. I'm open to suggestion. Any input would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's really part of, I think it's coming through some of the needs analysis documents that have come through the state and through different partners and key stakeholders that we need to reimagine not only education, but our tourism industry. So it's really, really critical right now, right? So thank you for sharing, Winnie.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to share with you, Winnie. Last weekend, I attended the Sustainable Summit at UH Hilo. I only did the one day. I didn't do the second day. So I sent you the link to the guest speakers there, and they talked exactly about this kind of stuff. So I think the recordings are still there, and you might be able, and it was co-funded by Hawaii Tourism Authority. So he was, the director was one of the keynote speakers. And so those videos are available. You might tap into them. So I sent you the link. Directly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually been talking to the HTA director.
Good.
So I have some connections. It's just putting everything in paper. That's the part that's why I'm here learning all the elements.
Right.
I have the nonprofit organization piece. I have the HTA piece, and I just need to know what other. I see that what I'm trying to put together going to take several grants, and I think it's good. And I was asking Kaleho earlier that which one come first? Do I come with the concept? Do I come up with the concept first, or do I search the grant first? You know, it's like chicken and egg. Which one do I do first? Yeah, so thank you for sharing that link. Yeah.
And that's a struggle too. Sometimes our projects can be really big, and breaking it down to pieces can make it a little bit more directed and focused to achieve the bigger picture. So that makes sense too. Kalihua, do you mind going next?
No, this is like a fun Mad Libs activity. I found it really helpful, but also complicated. So thank you, because I was struggling a little bit like what Winnie said. I have an idea in mind, and because I've been thinking about it for a while, I know the different sources of funding, but they all are looking at something slightly different. So what my struggle was, is I was basically brain dumping everything in one document, because I could write this proposal to lean one way or the other, depending who's funding it. So it was messy. And then I missed the part where we were supposed to do this before this meeting. So poor Winnie was sharing, Winnie was sharing all of hers, and I'm like, oh, mine's a mess. So I'll pick out the less messy parts. And the project idea is a summer introduction to culturally grounded agriculture aimed at high school students. So the target of the project is high school students in rural areas, specifically the Hamakua region. What will be different, or what's our goal or an outcome? Students will gain a training certificate, learn how to plant a community garden, and understand skills important to Aina Aloha, including Kilo. That's where it was starting to go like, way like, I have to stay in one lane. And to increase partnerships with agricultural community organizations in the area. Why is it important? The rural area high schools lost agricultural CTE pathways, and this would be aiming to better support student career exploration into agricultural fields. And then when you mash that all into a sentence, it felt like a lot of buzzwords, and it was really mouthy. I feel like in education, we always talk about these like phrases and buzzwords that only we understand. So I really have to work on it, but I like the sentence you gave us as an example because it was a nice like structure. So mine looks a lot like that. For right now, I just called it Project Grow, is a culturally relevant summer bridge program for rural area high school students to understand various career pathways in sustainable agriculture in the Hamakua region to support natural resource course offerings in area high schools and to grow future farmers to build community resilience. Barf. Period.
Thank you so much for sharing. You know, we have a lot of interest in Maui about that too. Maybe there's partnerships, and there's a lot of USDA grants that might, I can think of several that would really fit with that core idea. So thanks. And just so you know, I might send out stuff, but I don't expect anybody to do anything ahead of time. So that's why I have time in the sessions too, because I don't want anybody not to come because they didn't feel like they're prepared. It's okay wherever you're at. I'm just saying there's no shame in not coming prepared or not having an idea. It's all good. So I just want you here if you're interested. Chad, are you able to share? I know you said that you're in deep water. It's raining, it's downpouring here in Wailuku, so.
No, she was, I can't remember who it was saying that she felt like she was in deep water. And I said, oh, we're all in deep water most of the time. It was Lori. And yeah, so my topic is the physics literacy in early childhood project that I'm working on. I didn't finish the bullet points. The target audience is our early childhood teachers. What will be different as a result? I hope that the teachers will gain an appreciation for physics, and also again, to use a kind of a buzzword, a self-efficacy of or a feeling that they can teach it successfully. And why is this important? We read in the news nearly every other day that we're falling behind in STEM, and so we need to, and there's a lot of things in middle school and high school for STEM, but I think we need to start earlier. And so I don't have a sentence put together yet.
Thank you, Chad. And this is so exciting to start young, because Nasi and I have a little bit of background on this project, but we're with young children, we're excited. We want our teachers to be better prepared to teach STEM early on. So thank you for their work on this. So thank you all for being brave and sharing your ideas or sharing where you're at. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited. You see me typing, I'm taking some notes. I can just think of you as I see things come along for grant opportunities and connections. But so what I was thinking, if you're wanting to keep pursuing this further, and I know that we're kind of going slow and sometimes it might be a lot of information. Like as I was talking about the federal grants, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know, this is a lot of information, but you do have to start somewhere. So, just getting comfortable with that and the concept. I know we're at all different places with this concept idea and if we want to move forward with it. But what I was thinking in the next month, the next set of, I guess not including month, but the next set of sessions, talking about the parts of a proposal and going on this one sentence idea to have, so there's a one sentence overview, there's like a one sentence need, there's one sentence objective, kind of keeping going on this as we talk through the different parts and what's entailed in a general grant and what that section would look like and what that would mean. So that's my direction. But I'm open to input and feedback if you have other things that you want to go other directions. Is there any pressing questions or comments that you have?
Well, I just had a question. So I know you were talking about that the ORS, the Office of Resource Services. So as individual like people that work at the institution of UH, we don't like apply for the grant. We have them apply for us, but rewrite everything up. Is that how it works?
Somewhat. So if we write a grant, we're responsible for every single piece. And then what we do, and usually there's somebody to help us. And I'm usually the person that helps people at my college, and maybe I might need to, I don't know how many, if there's people at Hawaii CC to help with it, but and sometimes the person who writes it is responsible for it, like putting it into my grant, there's different pieces of it, or putting it into the National Science Foundation website. So you prepare your proposal, and we'll talk about that later once we get, I mean, it's pretty specific, but you prepare your proposal and then you submit it to ORS. So if ORS won't prepare anything on your behalf, they'll keep sending it back to you as many times as needed to get it the way that they think it should be for submission, as far as like the budget and the technical aspects, as far as getting the right numbers and codes and addresses and so forth. But they're not going to look at your narrative or your objectives or anything like that. So one thing we have access to, though, as a UH system, and through the UH system is the implementation group. So the implementation group, they go by TIG and grant consultants. So when we write a proposal, so I use them myself, we can send it to them, we can talk to them. So if we're thinking about writing our first NSF proposal or our first Department of Education proposal, we can meet with them and talk to them, and we can send them information. They can help us refine our idea. And then especially when we're writing, we can send them drafts and they'll edit it as many times as we send it to them. So they're pretty amazing to work with. And, once everybody gets to the proposal stage, I can connect you with TIG. So there's someone to help, but I think the thing that it's hard to wrap our head around, we're always responsible for writing the proposal. And like I said, I'm here to help, and I have lots of samples, and lots of things, and I'm starting to do this grant database. It's in the grant folders, but what I hope to do is have some resources there for people to copy and use. And a lot of people who are avid or grant writers are in the midst of writing them. I send them stuff like, here's some things that are relevant to work off of, because sometimes it's not always that different.
Thank you.
Pressing questions? Well, thank you all for coming. And I know that maybe you're thinking, okay, there's just a few sessions and I commit to that, but I'm going to try to keep hosting a Friday session. So join as you may, as you want. And like I said, the next few steps is, I think, going through different sections of a typical proposal and starting to write or run sentences in relation to that. And if you don't have an idea, it's okay, keep coming, because you can help the other people in your group refine the concept, as well as maybe a concept will come to you and still learning about the different pieces in the grant writing process. Okay, thank you all. Have a happy Friday and a good weekend.
Thank you. Have a good break. And if anyone gets a spring break or you take a day off with your kids, have a good week.
Yeah.
Mahalo, Melissa.
Mahalo. Mahalo. Ahui ho.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks for